order silver.
Really? Silver is the weapon against coronavirus?
On other strains of the coronavirus and has been able to eliminate it within 12 hours.
Jim Bakker, the televangelist, has now been sued for selling these fake coronavirus cures. Fraudsters are wasting no time to make money from your fear. The hoax likely originated from a widespread belief in silver's antibacterial properties. Some toothbrush brands have hyped the metal too in order to boost sales. But scientists agree silver has no effect against the coronavirus. In fact, exposure to colloidal silver can be toxic. Times of crisis are always great times for fake news and propaganda. And the more ridiculous the claims, it seems, the more traction they gain on social media. Be it tips like drinking alcohol to kill the virus and fight the disease, as tempting as it may sound for some, it isn't. Or religious claims that corona was a punishment dished out by God or Mother Nature. Our team from DW Science has put together a selection of some of the most outrageous fake news about COVID-19.
Whatever you do, don't try this at home. This clip, widely shared on WhatsApp, is just one example of the many coronavirus-related stories circulating online. The problem, as the disease continues to spread, fake news is going viral too. In India, a picture purporting to show an Italian boy taking his life after all his family members died from coronavirus went viral. But a fact check revealed that the footage actually shows the suicide of a woman before the outbreak. And this photo doesn't show dead bodies on the streets of Italy. It's actually an art installation in Germany. Also doing the rounds, conspiracy theories. Among them, that a South Korean series forecast the coronavirus outbreak back in 2018. Just one of many false stories describing the pandemic as a premeditated event. Platforms like Facebook are rife breeding grounds for the spread of fake news. The social networking giant is among several companies pledging to take stronger action to prevent the spread of misinformation. Others, too, are doing their bit to make sure people are getting the right information about corona. A service called Africa Check recently had to rebuff a South African mayor's claim that a vaccine against coronavirus had been developed.
Now, while much of Asia seems just over the hill and most of Europe is in mid-battle against COVID-19, Africa is bracing for impact. And fake news is not helping societies there to prepare for the onslaught. Let's bring in Vincent Ngeti. He's Deputy Kenya Editor at Africa Check and joins us from Nairobi. Vincent, how much of a problem is corona fake news in African countries right now?
Thanks for having me. Coronavirus misinformation is a big problem. And the reason is that the more people believe misinformation, then they will not follow the instructions. They're not going to wash their hands. They won't practice social distancing, and they will not stay at home. So these things mean that if they don't pay attention, the virus spreads more. And on top of that, you have people trying certain fake cures or medicines that have been proven not to work. We've seen in Nigeria, for example, that people have been poisoned by chloroquine because they heard it could work.
Vincent, what's the weirdest piece of fake news you've come across so far?
Well, the weirdest I have come across is that if you take some orange peels and you boil them and you inhale the steam, you can cure coronavirus. And we know that's not true because your body temperature, internal body temperature never really changes. All you end up doing is burning your nose.
Why on earth are people actually believing this kind of stuff?
Well, people believe misinformation, particularly about health, because it ties into their fears. People are afraid of diseases that are difficult to cure. And so this gives them hope. And when you give them hope, they will try these fake cures. They will buy medicines, fake medicines, if they have to. You should notice that really we don't see a lot of fake news about a disease like malaria because we all knew it's curable and the medicine is clearly accessible.
Do people across Africa generally trust their governments to take the right measures, or falls that misinformation on fertile ground?
People are more or less trustful of their governments, and the reason they are is because they know that government really can do the most to protect them. What we have seen is a bit of dissatisfaction with the measures that are being taken. So, for example, in Kenya, we know that, for example, the number of tests have been rising, but there's a concern that they're not enough. And also the fact that a lot of people live in an informal economy in Kenya. So they have to go out every day and earn money. And it's very difficult to tell people like that to stay at home and self-isolate unless you're providing them with food or money so that they can stay inside.
Who benefits from these fake news?
A number of people benefit. There are people who want to grow their influence online, and they'll spread anything that is fake, whether it's about coronavirus or politics, it doesn't matter. Then there are people who want to actually make a business selling fake cures so that you can actually spend your money to buy a fake cure or to do things that are not true. For example, the orange peel water. And then finally, you've got people who want to drive political agendas. So they're going to capitalize on people's fears to spread these stories, and that way spread the agenda that probably the system is wrong and therefore you should follow me because I have the solution. So there are people doing it digitally online. They have technological reasons, others have commercial reasons, and some have political reasons.
Vincent Ngeti, the Deputy Kenya Editor at Africa Check, thank you very much for joining us from Nairobi today. Today, our science correspondent Derek Williams will deal with some of the most virulent fake news stories and false claims about the coronavirus.
Was this virus genetically modified to be used as a biological weapon?
This was one of those conspiracy theories that was bound to pop up in the midst of a global pandemic, right? I mean, there have been too many books and movies with that as a plot line. But a team of researchers that studied the genetic makeup of the virus recently published some compelling arguments for why it wasn't engineered but must have naturally evolved. First, they said, SARS-CoV-2 most closely resembles coronaviruses found in bats that don't cause disease in humans. And of course, any evil scientist trying to build a superbug would have started with one that's already been proven to make us sick. Second, in our computer models, the changes to the SARS-CoV-2 genetic sequence that allowed it to start infecting us just don't look like they should work very well. They aren't mutations that any bioengineer would have chosen if they were trying to build a superbug, because the models would have said they don't really work. So no. The coronavirus was not designed by humans.
Can supplements like fish oil, zinc, or vitamins help?
Supplements are an area of nutrition where there's very little consensus in the scientific community under ordinary circumstances, much less in the midst of a pandemic. The idea that you can somehow boost your immune system, I mean, what does that mean anyway? The answer to this question is a resounding no. The only thing that we currently think will prevent you from catching the virus is if you've had it already and developed antibodies that will prevent you from getting it again. I'm not saying you should stop taking your fish oil or your vitamins, just don't expect them to keep you from catching COVID-19.
There is a rumour that loss of smell is a sign of a severe case of COVID-19. Can we hear more about that?
A recent large-scale study in Britain that collected data from hundreds of thousands of people self-reporting on an app showed that from those who eventually tested positive for the disease, around 60% had that symptom to a greater or lesser extent. That certainly sounds pretty convincing. The only problem is that losing the sense of smell or taste is also closely associated with other respiratory infections. It's a lot more common than you might think. That's why, as of this morning at least, the WHO was still reviewing the issue and hadn't yet decided to add the loss of smell or taste to the official list of symptoms of coronavirus infection. But that could very well happen in the coming days if there's enough evidence to support it.